Welcome to episode 15 of the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Tirapelli. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by endurance cyclist and bariatric athlete Rob Rafanan. After 10 years of living a morbidly obese existence, he had gastric bypass surgery in 2020. Rob had tried many diets and workout routines prior, but his body was failing him, and as a result, he was failing his family. As a father of two amazing kids and a husband to a staunchly supportive wife, he had not done his duty. He had failed in the most important job that he had. So Rob vowed to make a change. He vowed to be a better father and husband and to teach his family about the importance of healthy living. He vowed to save his family from joining the mounting list of family members who had been stricken with illnesses, all related to poor eating habits. And most importantly, he vowed to bring his family the happiness that they deserved. After losing 80 pounds in the 11 months prior to surgery, Rob was able to incorporate the principles of a balanced diet and lifestyle, combined with a reintroduced love for physical activity, to go from 380 pounds to 165 pounds. Not one to settle with just a number on the scale, he decided to begin manipulating his caloric intake and macronutrient profile to pair with a rigorous strength training regimen to gain 25 pounds of muscle over the next year. Rob had gone from being just shy of 400 pounds, walking with a cane and taking 15 medications for 4 herniated discs and the multiple health issues he had, to cycling 200 kilometers in a day, finishing in the top 10th percentile in his first triathlon, introducing an active lifestyle to his family, and being medication-free with a clean bill of health. Rob owes this new life to his surgery. He owes this new life to his family for inspiring and supporting him. But most importantly, he owes this new life to the hard work that he put in and the realization that he is worth it. Rob lost more than 200 pounds, but what he gained back cannot be measured. Thank you so much for being here today, Rob.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited that we connected and just going through your journey. And I read through the article that you were featured in that cycling magazine. I was like, what an absolutely inspirational and motivational story. And I'm just so honored to have you on today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I really do appreciate it.
Well, can we start off? Tell me a little bit about, I know we covered a lot of your journey in the intro here, but maybe tell us a little bit about how bariatric surgery has had an impact on your life.
It's changed everything dramatically. I've always been a big person, but I've always been active, right? I grew up during university. I worked at numerous health food stores. I knew about health. I knew about supplementation, but I was always slightly bigger. It all sort of changed once I graduated university. I became an adult, started working. My goal at that time is to establish myself professionally, and everything else sort of went out the window. And as a result, I started gaining weight. And everything just totally changed. My body started failing me in regards to some damage I had. And I think a lot of it was existing damage I would have had from all the sports I used to play. But I didn't focus on what I needed to do. And I think bariatric surgery really helped put things into perspective as to what's important for myself. And, a lot of the issues that I had previously, they're gone now. My health is amazing. I'm more mobile. I'm an active parent. I'm a present parent. I always joke around that I was a gold medal athlete in endurance watching and endurance sitting as a parent, just because I would always just sit and watch my kids grow up, unfortunately. And this has allowed me to be there for my kids, which was my goal from the very beginning. Yeah. So it's given me a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd like to hear that. And I know that also in talking to you offline here, you had talked a little bit about having plastic surgery. Can you tell us a little bit more about that part of your journey with plastic surgery?
Yeah. And so this was something I always had thought about. On Facebook, I've been on a lot of different groups in regards to bariatric surgery and bariatric fitness, but I was also in one about bariatric surgery in regards to plastic surgery. I always, from the very beginning, I always said if I did lose the weight that I wanted to have the skin removal surgery, because at my age, the fact that since my 20s, I haven't really had my shirt off or anything like that, or I was very embarrassed about the way I looked. And for me, it was very important to be able to celebrate that and to celebrate the fact that I'm still young. I'm still able to be proud of the way I look and the work that I've put into it, but also to show my family and my kids that, hey, regardless of what you look like, regardless of everything that you've done, you should celebrate yourself and your achievements. So for me, that was a big part of that. And I would do it again. Heck, I am doing it again. So, it's definitely worth it, I think. And if it's going to make you feel better and feel happy, 100% go for it.
Yeah. And how was like your recovery process through that? Was it a tough recovery? How did that all work out?
It was tougher than my bariatric surgery.
Okay.
So, after they took off about 6 pounds of skin from me.
Okay.
And the big challenge, I think, was I had worked so much in reteaching my body how to engage my core whenever I was doing basic movements. Because when I was bigger, when I had the 4 herniated discs, when I had all the issues I had, I wasn't engaging my core. I wasn't using a lot of stabilizer muscles. Everything was just on my lower back. And so I worked very hard to relearn that skill. And once you have surgery, you do not want to use that skill out of fear of, hey, I'm going to rip something open, right?
Sure.
I even tried to convince my surgeon, hey, I don't think I need any muscle repair or anything. I think it's pretty good. And he was like, yeah, I'll let you know when I open you up. But yeah, so he did some muscle repair. But yeah, and so you spent a long time sort of hunched over.
Sure.
And there's a lot of swelling and there's a lot of tension. And so even now, this is about 10 months since my surgery. I'm still having to constantly mindfully stretch my torso out to try to stretch the fascia and to be able to stand up straight. There's always tension. So I know that it has caused some challenges with some of the movements I have. I play pickleball a lot more now. And so I've had hip issues, but I know that that's a big part of it because I am not really stretching myself out to engage other muscles there too. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's been a longer surgery. Recovery process.
Yeah. But ultimately you were happy that you did it, but these other challenges can come along with it.
Definitely. And you know what? I think that this is inherent with bariatric patients, or I think in regards to obese patients or obese people in general, we do a lot of planning, right? Because if I'm going somewhere, I need to know how big the seat is, what the weight limit is on X thing, how much I can do, everything. We have to do a lot more. We have to do a lot of planning. I used to go camping. I still do a lot of backcountry camping and portaging. And it's like, okay, what's the weight capacity of this? Well, how much can I pack to not do this? I remember I would have to know exactly how long the walk is to our specific site. And sometimes it's a couple kilometers. Then I would have to pack my bag and do that on a street because I wanted to make sure I was able to do that. And I think that with bariatric surgery, as well as skin removal surgery, we did a lot of research to understand what we'd be going through. I did not expect the recovery to be this long.
Gotcha.
But I also think that it's a matter of being dynamic and able to adjust to what's needed. And I think that, that's somewhere where people struggle as well, including myself.
Sure. Well, let's kind of talk a little bit more then about the exercise journey, because I know, my goodness, I am so impressed with the amount of the cycling and, of course, just pickleball and the weightlifting. And I want to touch on all those things because what I think is so great about your story is that you have incorporated so many different things. And I know, in talking that, maybe I don't know exactly the amount of cycling that you did prior to the surgery, but it sounds like in the article that I read that you had started kind of a small cycling club where you started. Is that right? Tell me a little bit about how you got into cycling.
So it was actually, my neighbors, I have a very, very close neighborhood. And we go on vacations together. During the week, we have dinner together. We barbecue so people don't have to make dinner. It's like big group. And, when I was at my largest, 380, they had a bit of an intervention for me. And they brought me together and they expressed that they were concerned for me. And these are all the guys type thing, right? And so we had a discussion about sort of making some changes. And they all said, yeah, if you want, we'll all make the changes. We'll all do everything. And
Sure.
so I was talking to a couple of them, and they were talking about cycling because they do some mountain biking and whatnot. And I asked them, I can ride a bike because I'm not standing. I'm not going to be in pain. If I
Right.
started cycling, would you cycle with me? And 3 of them were saying yes, 100%. And so I bought a bike. They bought bikes, and we started riding. And I could do 5 kilometers, maybe 10 kilometers, not much at all. But when winter hit, instead of stopping, we joined a gym that had virtual biking, and this gym, no one used the virtual biking. And so we ended up sort of commandeering that area as our area and going every single day all through winter. And the first time it was like above freezing. So 0 degrees, 1 degree, 2 degree Celsius. Yeah. We were back outside doing rides again. Wow. So it was awesome. So that was really what got me going in terms of cycling. And that was really what helped me lose that 80 pounds prior to surgery.
Sure. And then after you had your surgery, kind of tell me a little bit about your exercise journey. What did you start with, up to where you are today and the things that you're doing? Tell us a little bit about how that evolution has happened.
Right. So cycling was the first thing I got into, and it was winter cycling at that time. So I was doing what's called Zwift, which is sort of like an online, it's sort of like a video game for cycling that you connect all your stuff for your bike. Think of a treadmill for a bike. So you have an indoor trainer and it connects virtually to this world. And so I actually led some rides up to 100 people on Zwift, which was great. And it just got me motivated to keep riding. And so that was the first thing I was able to do. I will say I jumped in way too early because my body was feeling it. And, I had some tendinitis for a little bit that I couldn't take anti-inflammatories for, which I ended up using a topical anti-inflammatory, which ended up giving me an ulcer over the Christmas break at that time. Yeah, but it's all learning. Right? And cycling was still the thing that I maintained throughout all of that. And then once I got to my absolute lowest, I looked at myself and I said, wow, you're really scrawny. You've been riding a ton, right? 100-kilometer rides were our regular weekend rides. Every single day after work, we would do 30 to 50 kilometers as a group. And I just lost so much, and my body was still in the mode that you're losing, and your body really will dictate a lot of times when you're going to stop, what's good for you, as well as your nutrition, obviously. And I was just like, no, it's time to put on muscle. And so I started upping my calories, upping my protein. Again, I have a bit of a background and knowledge in terms of sports nutrition. And I started doing weight training outside on my driveway. I bought a whole bunch of kettlebells, and I started doing circuit training. I was doing CrossFit previously, a little bit. And then I started, we had this cycling club, and then I ended up starting a circuit club. And so fun. We would have, we'd have like 10 people on our driveway doing circuits, and we'd constantly be going and going at the same time. And even through winter, they would come in my garage, and we'd have 4 or 5 of us, heaters blasting, didn't matter how cold it was. And every single day it was consistent. And for me, the part that I absolutely loved is my wife was years of running and aerobics classes. And she's like, I don't want to do weights. And now she got super, super hooked. And she's throwing kettlebells stronger or heavier than most of my friends, and she's killing it, and she loves it, absolutely loves it. So for me, that was the big win for me.
Sure.
Gaining muscle is great, but seeing that change in her confidence, everything was amazing to see. So
I love that you've incorporated the community, your family. Like, how cool. I mean, I think we all want to like come hang out in your neighborhood because gosh, that is so cool. What good support though too. And, but then you turned it around and said, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. You guys want to join me? And now you've impacted their lives too, which is really cool.
Yeah. And we also we also started a running club too. Once I started running. Well, the thing is we live on a court. Our court is 333 meters around. So we know you can go 3 lengths and you're doing 1 kilometer. Okay. A lot of us have kids around our age, and they always play outside. And it's hard for us to go on a 5-10 kilometer run where our kids are not here. Right. So this way, we can just constantly be doing laps at our own pace. Sure. We're together. We're seeing each other. Sometimes people will run opposite directions. So we're constantly seeing each other. We're seeing our kids all outside. They're running with us. And so, we have some elderly people who want to walk it. cool.
Sure.
Walk it. You're still not alone. We're all together. So it's been amazing. It's been amazing to do all these different things.
I can tell. Oh my gosh. And then tell us a little bit about your pickleball too, because I know that's like all the rage here in the US. Like, I know you're in Canada but yeah, gosh, pickleball is like, it is really picking up. There's leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, it is all the rage.
I am going to be doing a tournament this year. So yeah, at the end of our end of summer last year, we have a trailer at a trailer park that we go to on the weekends. And they set up a pickleball court. And so they were playing, and a friend of mine was like, oh, do you want to come? And I came, and I got my butt whipped by a whole bunch of old people. And so I was just like, I want to learn this. Like, I've never played racket sports or anything of that nature. And so, I got by just on being athletic and being able to run around and get to balls and stuff, but technique, horrible. And so I started learning, and I realized that there is a pickleball association in the town that I live in. Mm-hmm. And so I started going to some of those drop-ins to learn how to play, learn the rules and everything. And that has quickly turned into, hey, I'm playing 5 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I've been moving up and playing with a lot of different people, which is amazing, meeting a lot of people. And for me, it's all about learning and progressing, right? So
for sure.
It's just been absolutely awesome. And I'm trying to get a whole bunch, like some of my neighbors also jumped into it. And I have some other friends sort of getting into it as well. So
that's
it's exciting.
Fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah. A new challenge, something to kind of keep things fresh. And I know, when I talk with folks, they're like, oh, maybe I've plateaued or something. And I always say, like, oh, have you tried something new in terms of your exercise? It's a great way, just kind of for some cross training for your cycling. And of course, the strength training that you're doing. How many days a week did you say you're doing your strength training?
So strength training is generally 4 to 5 days.
Okay.
Pickleball ends up being 4 to 5 days. And because I have committed to a triathlon at the end of June, that's also going to be a lot of days. So it's going to be a matter of how I'm going to balance everything out. Everything is going to have to take a bit of a hit for sure, right?
Sure. For sure.
Unfortunately, cycling as my strength tends to take a bit more of a hit because I don't want to drown. And so swimming, learning how to swim and doing that is important. And I do find that, running at the end of that, the triathlon has been, it was a bit harder. So yeah, definitely swimming.
And the one in June, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the one in June that you're doing, it's a sprint triathlon?
Yeah, it's a sprint triathlon. So it's going to be, this one is going to be about 900 meters in terms of the swim. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 30 kilometers on the bike, followed by 7.5 kilometers on the run.
Okay. Got it. And just for people here in the US, so 30 kilometers would be, let's see. So a 10K for us, that's 6.2 miles. So that's going to be like 18 miles or so.
Yes.
I guess
18.6.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Gosh, that's awesome. And yeah, I did a sprint triathlon many years ago and I'm in California, and there's this island. It's called Catalina Island. It's kind of just off the shore of like Long Beach down south here. And that was the first time I ever did a sprint triathlon, and it was so much fun. Just a shorter swim. I think the bike ride was a 10K, so I think it was only like 6 miles or something, and then it was a 5K run, so it was just 3 mile run. And it was really fun. It was my first intro into doing triathlons, and switching, obviously doing swimming to cycling to running. And the reason I wanted to highlight those distances is because I think that's a great introduction to triathlons. If folks want to get into that, a sprint triathlon is, shorter distances. So you get that feel and you get the understanding of how to transition. And, it's a doable distance when you're first starting.
And so it's interesting. So when I did that one, I also did it with a bariatric patient as well.
Oh, cool.
Who is in one of my bariatric fitness groups in Ontario. And so the one that I'm doing at the end of June, we had all connected sort of on Facebook and said, who wants to do it? And, someone would say, hey, Rob, are you going to do it? Sort of calling me out. I'm like,
dang
yes,
it.
I'm doing it. And then there's like 10, 12 of us all doing it.
Cool.
So it's going to be really, really fun to do for sure.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the fueling side of all these awesome activities you're doing. Of course, I love to talk about the eating part, the nutrition part of this. Can we talk a little bit about, so when you're going to do one of your longer rides, let's kind of get into more where the fueling is going to be, pretty important piece of it. Can you tell us a little bit about if you're going to be going on a longer ride, ride. So let's say, at least, 30 kilometers or more, where you're going to be out there for a couple hours, maybe. Tell us a little bit about what you eat on a typical day. Like start off with, maybe what you have pre ride and then what you carry on the ride with you also.
Right. So generally, if we're doing a longer ride, in general, we'll say like 100 kilometers in this, because 30 kilometers are sort of like that after work
Shorter.
type. You get everything, because we could do that in an hour. So with our long rides, we generally start them first thing in the morning. So I always wake up quite a bit early, and 2 hours prior to my ride, I'll have overnight oats with a mixture of chia as well as oats, protein powder, and I will do that about 2 hours prior to my ride. At the 1 hour mark out from my ride, I will take my first electrolyte mix. And so I actually use something that's called Flow Formula, which is, I really, really like it. It's a mixture of maltodextrin as well as agave powder. So in terms of your glycemic index, you have something that's fast, you have something that's slow, and it doesn't have a ton of ingredients in there. You have sodium as your electrolyte mix. So I'll do that at 1 hour out. And then I'll do my second one right before my ride.
Okay.
And then as I'm riding, I make it a point to drink one bottle, which has, I'll put 60 grams of carbohydrates in there. So 2 scoops of Flow Formula. And every bottle needs to last 1 hour. And so I will be sipping throughout the day, because this was my big challenge with having bariatric surgery. I'm like, how am I going to keep doing this? From gels to chews to all these different things, to, hey, I can eat a banana, but then, as a bariatric patient, I can't drink at that time as well, because then you're going to cause issues. So for me, it was all about how can I get everything and simplify everything. And Flow Formulas for giving me my electrolytes as well as my carbohydrates, as well as my hydration, because I'm drinking a liter of water every single time, really, really worked. So I'm the guy who's constantly yelling hydrate in the group. In the pace line, I'm the guy every 15 minutes. I'm always yelling people, you should be done 1/4 of your bottle at this time. 30 minutes in, you should be done half your bottle. So for me, it's clockwork. I have to.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. No, that's excellent, because I know I've talked a little bit about this in some previous episodes about that, 30 to 60 grams per hour is kind of the basic, that's the somewhat starting goal in terms of how many carbs to have in an hour. And then of course, if you're going to be out there much longer, 2.5 hours longer, they even suggest up to 90 grams in an hour. Yeah. Which is challenging.
It's
and then
hard
even,
for me. I've tried.
Yeah, it is. It's very challenging. And what I love that you're saying specifically too about the separating of food and drink, this is where for a lot of, I know bariatric athletes that I've worked with, just finding a beverage, the liquid that has the carbohydrates and the electrolytes is usually an easier route to go than trying to balance eating and separating your fluids. And, but everybody's different, because I've had some folks that just don't tolerate those, whether it's the flavor or, and we got to find what works, 100%. So did you ever have any other strategies that you used? Was there anything else that you've ever tried that worked or didn't work? Just to hear.
Yeah, I tried a few different things. I spoke with a lot of people and sort of looked at what they did. And unfortunately, it is, well, fortunately and fortunately, because it's all a learning process. I did a lot of trial and error, right? So I did whole food for a little while, but I did find that it was upsetting my stomach to be able to drink. And so hydration was a big challenge for me, especially because we do all our, most of our rides during the summer months. I find that was hard for me. So it was sort of like, okay, let's try a mix and see how I can do with that. I tried, different gels, but I did find that a lot of the gels and a lot of the chews were very high glycemic carbohydrates that really hit really fast. And I found that because of that, it sort of upset my stomach a bit more in terms of the rate that it absorbed. And I tried a few different hydration mixes. I just found that this was sort of the cleanest and it was the easiest to do. And, once you find sort of what works for you, it's like, I don't really want to mess around.
Don't mess it up.
Like I don't want to be on a 100-kilometer ride and I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting dumping syndrome or something, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. No, that would not be good. No, that's awesome. And I just love to hear what you've tried, because again, that's the biggest key too is trial and error. This is all trial and error for everybody, because everyone's different depending on what type of surgery you had. If you had the vertical sleeve gastrectomy versus the gastric bypass, maybe some folks that I've had with the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, they can tolerate more, maybe more simple carbohydrates. It just depends. Whereas the bypass or duodenal switch is going to be typically more sensitive and really have to figure out what works. So I appreciate what you have shared. And what did you say that formula was again?
It's called Flow Formulas. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not actually available in Canada, so we had to order it from the States because I was looking for a good balance that didn't have so much just simple sugars, right?
Right. Totally.
And this one worked really, really well. It was formulated by a dietitian as well. So it was really, really good. They have tons of studies because, so for work, I do medical device sales for 3M. And so a big part of what we do with wound care is based on studies. So I read studies all the time. And so when I look at a lot of these products, I'm just like, okay, well, what scientific backing do they have, right?
Yes.
And, is it generic or is it specific to their product and everything? So, I enjoyed reading up on this product. So definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like a great one. Okay, so that's great. That's another one for folks to look into for sure, to try. And I would that would also apply for my endurance runners as well. It can be used for either, obviously, for endurance sports. So that's great. And does anything change on race day? Do you change how you eat on race day versus a training day?
No, I'm very much a creature of habit. So everything is the same on race day. Timing is the same on race day. Everything is set up exactly the same. And when I was doing the try, so with the try, it did slightly change just because most of my nutrition would be coming during the bike portion for me. During the swim, I'm not going to stop to do anything. During the ride, I can drink and get everything I need. And it would set me up for the time to do my run, right?
Sure.
If it was a longer moving forward, like I know I'm not going to be doing 7.5 kilometers, I'll do within the hour.
Sure.
So I should be okay, but I might have something to sort of top me up sort of in that transition. But yeah, for the shorter ones, no, it wouldn't change.
Yeah. And you bring your things with you, because another discussion that I have with athletes sometimes is it's not maybe the best strategy to just rely on what is out there. Like, for example, for my runners and things like that, I've had some runners get to a race and, the way that they diluted the Gatorade mixture at the stations were too sweet or, So I always just advise folks, it's best to have your own game plan and maybe your own products with you. So it sounds like you mix yours already and you carry that pre-made, it's ready for you.
Yeah, that or a lot of Ziploc bags. And then, I come really, really early and set everything up. And
sure.
And yeah, I sort of have to. I don't want to rely on something that may not work for me.
Absolutely. And what's your favorite recovery meal when you are done with long rides or on race day? What have you found worked for you that sits well?
So I used to be a big protein shake guy when I used to weightlift like crazy when I was in university, and that was my big thing. Now, I still will have protein shakes. I'll mix them in my coffee. I'll do certain things, but I go full whole food now as much as possible. So we eat a lot of hard-boiled eggs. Hard-boiled eggs are a big thing, but if I can have a meat source and I know, sorry, other bariatric patients who can't eat rice. I eat a lot of rice. Rice is big for me. And so if I can have rice and some sort of meat after my workout, that's usually what I'll go for. It does tend to be my biggest meal of the day. And then I will usually about an hour to an hour and a half after I'll have a second meal, smaller in overall quantity. And then it'll sort of taper off as the day goes.
Sure. And do you have any advice that you have for a bariatric athlete who wants to begin endurance cycling? Do you have any advice you want to share?
Yeah. Two main things. One, I think it's important to have a conversation with yourself about what motivates you, but also what holds you back. That's something that I really had to do prior to having the surgery and understanding, why have I failed in the past? Why have I succeeded? And is this the right option for me? And inevitably it was the right option for me. And so I think, having that conversation, that really honest conversation with yourself is very important. What do you like about cycling or whatever endurance sport you're doing? Is it the camaraderie? Then organize something so you ride with people. I knew for me, being with other people motivated me. So I had a running club and a cycling club and a circuit club, all these different things. Because accountability is a big thing for me. If I'm around other people, I don't want to feel like I'm letting them down. Do you like the alone time? Do it on your own. Do you like, for me, I'm a stats guy. So I like having a little computer and a way to monitor how I progress, right? If you don't care about that, don't do that, right? Just understand yourself and understand what you can do to make yourself happy and excited about whatever you're doing. And
Sure.
secondly, just go for it. Just go for it. A lot of things we find as overweight people, there are a lot of things that hold us back from a lot of things, right? Um, will people be looking at us? I'm a big guy on a little bike. So people will be looking at us. Will I be able to do it? Will the bike be strong enough? All these different questions, right? And the
Right.
answers tend to be yes, 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 yes. The bike will be able to hold you. You will be able to do it. And yes, people will be looking at you, right? But at the end of the day, you're the one looking at yourself in the mirror. You're the one that's going to be benefiting from all this. And so you need to look at why you're doing this and what you want to get from this and make that decision that will ultimately get you to a place of happiness, because really you deserve it. You've put a lot of hard work, you've made some big decisions. And I always say that the decision to have bariatric surgery is the most noble decision you've made because of all the things that you're changing as a result of it. So just go for it. 100%.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's such great advice. Thank you. I appreciate that because I think that resonates with so many folks because it's scary. I mean, this whole process from start to finish,
Yep.
can be a scary thing. But I love that you've kind of dove into so many different, specifically like activities and things that you have found that you enjoy. And that has allowed you to keep challenging yourself and
Yeah.
involving community and friends and family. And that has been such a positive thing for you. And I just appreciate that you're sharing that because I think, oftentimes we think we have to go this alone, but sometimes it's great when you can find things that you can enjoy with other folks too. It helps to keep you going.
Oh, for sure. From the very beginning, a lot of people, they look at goals and goal setting. And I do find that this is a very common thing with bariatric patients. It's like, oh, what's your goal? Oh, I want to lose X amount of pounds. Nothing wrong with that. For me, it was very much about not the number, but this is the lifestyle that I want. I've said this in other podcasts and with other people, if I close my eyes, I can see a specific picture of me and my kids. I can hear the sounds of the birds. I can feel the warmth of the sun. I know exactly what life that is that I want.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I need to look back at that day and say, whatever I'm doing, am I heading towards that specific goal? And if you do, it doesn't matter about your stalls. I had a 7-week stall where I lost 2 pounds, right?
Yeah.
It didn't get me down because I knew I was putting in all the work to get to that picture that I wanted, right? And I think that the more people can work on their mindset and being prepared for things and being able to adjust to things, the better, because it can't just be about something that can fluctuate with water and when you wake up and with what you eat and your hormones, all those things. If you're basing everything on the weight, you're going to be unhappy.
Right. Right. Oh, that's so true. Gosh. And it sounds like I was going to ask you kind of biggest lessons learned from endurance cycling and fueling. I mean, obviously some of those pieces of advice would fall into this, but any other lessons that you've learned from, when you've been doing your cycling or fueling, things that you've learned?
Yeah, I think we talked about the trial and error is the big thing, right? Everyone's going to be different. And I think learning to adjust is going to be a big part. I think that one of the reasons why a lot of us were in the position of being obese is because we didn't know how to adjust to things, right? Different stressors,
Sure.
different things happen. And I know with me, it was shut down. That was my adjustment, shut down. And
Sure.
so being able to address things and confront them, but adjust yourselves and your behavior to that, I think is going to be very important. And same type of thing when you're looking at your fueling as well as your ability on a bike or in any situation. Everything's going to be different. How are you going to adjust?
Right. Right. And adjusting expectations too, it sounds like was
100%.
something that you were thinking as well. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Totally. Oh, I so appreciate this. Where can the audience contact you or learn more about you?
You can find me on Instagram at Waiting in Vain, WEIGHTING in vain, sort of like the Bob Marley song.
Yep.
Or the other thing you can do is you can catch us on our podcast called The Waiting Table. And it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those fun things. We're also on Instagram. And we created that podcast because when I found that I started this journey, it was hard for me to find someone that I could relate to. Right. It was hard for me to find a 30-something bariatric patient who was into endurance training.
Right.
and so our podcast, what our goal was to give a platform to people to find someone. And we have a lot of different types of guests, a lot of different durations since their surgery, and a lot of different activities. So we just try to make sure that people see that they're not in this alone, and we're cheering them on. So.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So guys, please go and listen to his podcast. I watched it too. Thought it was so great. I started following your other co-hosts there. So who are your co-hosts? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. My co-hosts are Shay, who is on Instagram at Grow with Shay, and Murph, who is the originator with me, and his is at Murph's Losing It. Awesome. Murph started at 400 plus pounds. Wow. And he had lost quite a bit. And I think the main thing that sort of resonated with me and Murph is we're exact same person. you know, everything, all the challenges we had, everything was the same. And so that really connected with us. And Shay has been like a breath of fresh air to these two old guys who are, going through things. So, hey, we got to learn how to adapt, right? So Shay is the way that we're adapting right now.
I love it. I love it. Well, definitely go give that a listen. I've enjoyed it thus far. And I just, again, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate your insight, but all the different parts of your journey that I think, you've gone through a lot of different phases and different parts of your journey. And I just appreciate you sharing, honestly, and especially on, of course, I really enjoyed too, the fueling part and the tips on that. That's very important and helpful for folks to know that, again, trial and error is a big thing. And you got to find what works best for you. So thank you so much for being on today, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim, for having me. I really do appreciate being on.
Yeah. And I'll put all your things in the show notes just so everyone knows. You can see, you'll be able to have a link to his Instagram and his podcast also. I'll put on in the show notes there. And then just as a reminder, you can watch this full episode of the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast on my YouTube channel, the Active Bariatric Nutrition channel. So please consider subscribing to that. Give it a like. And if you know of someone that you think would find this podcast helpful, I just would be so appreciative if you wouldn't mind sharing it, because again, my mission with our podcast here is just to be able to get out the most helpful stories and information to help folks as they are on their journeys after bariatric surgery. So if you don't mind sharing it, I'd be so appreciative. And you can follow me at Instagram on Active Bariatric. I'm also on Facebook and TikTok. And if you'd like more information about my one-to-one bariatric nutrition coaching services, please go to my website at www.activebariatricnutrition.com, and you can schedule a discovery call so we can learn more about each other. So thank you again for joining me this week. I hope you found this episode as helpful as I did, and we'll do this again next week. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.